Welcome to Night Coffee Crime, where we explore the darkest corners of human nature and dive deep into real-life cases that captivate and terrify. Today, we're delving into the unsettling case of Bradford Bishop, a man who, according to investigators, committed one of the most shocking crimes in American history. In 1976, Bishop allegedly murdered his wife, mother, and 3 young sons before vanishing without a trace. What could drive a man with a seemingly perfect life, successful career, loving family, to commit such a heinous act? And how has he managed to evade justice for nearly 5 decades? Join me as we uncover the chilling details of this case and the lingering mystery of Bradford Bishop. March 2, 1976, just one day after the brutal killings. In eastern North Carolina, a park ranger noticed smoke rising from a secluded spot in the woods. What he expected to be a small brush fire quickly turned into a crime scene like no other. As he approached, he discovered the charred remains of 5 bodies, lying in a shallow grave. The bodies had been set on fire, leaving the victims unrecognizable. Nearby, a shovel lay discarded, along with a red gas can, raising further suspicions about the nature of this tragic scene. Investigators found a price tag on the shovel, partially showing the name of a store. The only clue at the scene read, OCHHD. However, the police realized there was no hardware store in North Carolina with that name. This led them to question whether any store contained those letters in its name. They reached out to the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., where they were familiar with a store in Potomac, Maryland, named POCH. Investigators contacted the hardware store owner and posted flyers about the victims, in the hope of gathering more information from the community. While investigators were piecing together the evidence from the fire, a concerned citizen called the police, drawing their attention to the small home in Bethesda, Maryland. Neighbors reported they hadn't seen the Bishop family in over a week, and the accumulation of newspapers and mail suggested something was amiss. Normally, the family would inform neighbors when they were going out of town. Upon entering the house, the officers were met with a horrific scene. The interior was a blood-soaked nightmare. The victims were identified as 68-year-old Lobelia, the mother of Bradford Bishop, 37-year-old Annette, his wife, and their 3 sons, 14-year-old William, 10-year-old Brenton, and 5-year-old Jeffrey. However, Bradford Bishop was nowhere to be found, leaving everyone puzzled about his whereabouts. The investigation into the Bishop family's disappearance and the brutal crime scene in Bethesda became a race against time. Authorities were determined to find Bradford Bishop and uncover the truth behind this chilling tragedy. William Bradford Bishop was born on August 1, 1936, in California. From an early age, he demonstrated intelligence and ambition, traits that would later define his career. He attended Yale University for his undergraduate studies, and then went on to earn a master's degree from Middlebury College in Vermont. After completing his education, Bishop joined the U.S. Army, where he quickly rose through the ranks as an officer. His military experience was heavily focused on intelligence, and he developed a specialization in military strategy and foreign relations. This expertise eventually led him to a prestigious position as a Foreign Service officer with the U.S. State Department. Throughout his career, Bishop was stationed at embassies across the globe, particularly in Africa and Europe. He was a man of many talents, fluent in 5 languages, including English, Italian, French, Spanish, and Serbo-Croatian. He even held a master's degree in Italian and spoke the language fluently. Bishop also had a specific expertise in passport development, a critical skill in his diplomatic and intelligence work. His skills extended beyond languages. He was also an experienced pilot, often flying small aircraft during his assignments in Africa. But for Bradford Bishop, being reassigned to Washington, D.C., was a shock. He was deeply unhappy with his new office job, feeling trapped and frustrated by the lack of excitement and purpose he had once found in his overseas assignments. The financial pressures of living in the U.S. only added to his discontent. Life abroad had been much easier for him financially, while his wife, Annette, had grown increasingly attached to suburban life in Washington's quiet neighborhoods. Bishop was under a lot of pressure. He suffered from insomnia and had been seeking psychiatric treatment for depression. His mental health was deteriorating, and it seemed like the weight of his career and personal life were closing in on him. March 1, 1976, began as a day of disappointment and frustration for Bradford Bishop, a U.S. State Department employee. That morning, he learned that he had not received a long-anticipated promotion. A fact that filled him with anger and resentment. Bishop was at the office that day, visibly upset over the news. By the afternoon, he told his supervisor that he wasn't feeling well and would be going home early. Before leaving, Bishop made a stop at a local bank, withdrawing $400 in cash, an unusually large sum for that time. After leaving work, Bishop drove to the Montgomery Mall in Bethesda, Maryland. There, at the Sears department store, he purchased a sledgehammer and a 2.5-gallon gas can. His next stop was a nearby gas station, where he filled both the canister and his car's tank to the brim. But his unsettling shopping spree didn't stop there. Bishop then headed to Poach's hardware store in Potomac, Maryland, where he purchased a shovel. With these items in hand, Bishop returned home. What happened next would leave the Bishop family home soaked in tragedy and blood. Later that evening, as the quiet night settled in, Bradford Bishop committed a crime so brutal it would shock the nation. After putting his 3 sons to bed, he set his horrifying plan into motion. First, Bishop attacked his wife, Annette, striking her in the head with the sledgehammer he had purchased earlier that day. After killing her, he dragged her body back to the master bedroom and placed her on the bed. But the nightmare didn't end there. Bishop then moved from room to room, brutally killing each of his sleeping children, 14-year-old William, 10-year-old Brenton, and 5-year-old Jeffrey, with the same sledgehammer. The blows were precise, and none of the children had a chance to fight back. At the time, Bishop's mother, Lobelia, was living with the family. She had taken the family dog out for a walk earlier that evening. When she returned home, she too became a victim of Bishop's violent spree. He struck her in the head as she entered the house, killing her instantly. Remarkably, throughout this horrific event, the family's dog was spared. Bishop then gathered the bodies of his wife, mother, and children, placing them in the family station wagon and driving off. Bishop left Bethesda, Maryland, that night, driving south with the bodies of his family in the station wagon and the family dog by his side. His destination, a remote area in North Carolina. After traveling for hours, he found a secluded spot on a forest road in a rural area. There, Bishop used the shovel he had purchased earlier to dig a shallow grave. He piled the bodies of his family members into the grave, one on top of the other. Finally, he took the gas canister, poured gasoline over the bodies, and set them ablaze. The smoldering remains of the fire and the bodies were discovered the next day, March 2, 1976, by a park ranger who had noticed the smoke rising from the forest. What he found would lead to one of the most perplexing manhunts in U.S. history. In North Carolina, William Bradford Bishop was spotted at a convenience store with a woman his age and what may have been the family dog. Seemingly casual, he purchased a pair of tennis shoes, using his credit card to identify himself. Little did anyone know that this small act was just a step in his chilling escape. Authorities later discovered Bishop's station wagon parked in a lot at Great Smoky National Park. It became clear that he had not cleaned out the vehicle. All the evidence from the horrific murders remained inside. As investigators opened the car, they found dog biscuits, a bottle of Sir Axe, and an antidepressant medication, remnants of his life before the unthinkable. Most unsettling was the spare tire well, which was filled with blood, indicating the gravity of his crimes. They also discovered a shotgun in the vehicle, but the ammunition had been left behind. It was clear that Bishop had acted swiftly, leaving behind crucial evidence that would haunt him. Police believed that as Bishop walked away from the park, he was carrying a revolver, adding to the sense of urgency in the search for the man who had shattered his family's lives. A massive manhunt was initiated for William Bradford Bishop, as authorities meticulously searched every hotel and area around the Great Smoky National Park. Despite their efforts, he had seemingly vanished into the dense woods, leaving no trace of where he might have gone. Alarmingly, his diplomatic passport was also missing, raising further concerns about his potential escape. Officials scrutinized every lead, including a visit to the Department of State, where they examined Bishop's personnel file. In a surprising turn, they found a letter sent by a bank robber named Bankston. It revealed that Bishop, an official with the U.S. government, had been corresponding with an inmate. As the investigation unfolded, international clues began to surface, with sightings reported in various locations worldwide, including Sorrento, Italy, and Basel, Switzerland. Over the years, there were 3 credible sightings of Bishop that added a sense of urgency to the search. A Swedish woman that he knew in Ethiopia claimed to have seen him twice in a park in Stockholm. Meanwhile, a former neighbor from Maryland reported seeing Bishop on a train in Basel, Switzerland, where they locked eyes for a brief moment. Unfortunately, the trains were heading in opposite directions, making it impossible for them to approach him. Adding to the intrigue, a colleague of Bishop, Roy Harrell, recounted a chilling encounter in a men's restroom in Sorrento. Harrell spotted Bishop, now sporting a beard, and exclaimed, "You're Brad Bishop, aren't you?" To this, Bishop trembled and replied, "Oh God, no," before hurriedly leaving the restroom, disappearing once more into the shadows. On April 10, 2014, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, placed William Bradford Bishop on its 10 most wanted fugitives list, hoping to generate new leads. Despite the renewed attention, Bishop remained elusive. In 2018, after 4 years on the list, the FBI removed him to make space for another, dangerous fugitive. Years earlier, in a significant moment of renewed public interest, America's Most Wanted had featured an age-progressed bust of Bishop, depicting him with a beard and showing how he might look decades after the murders. In a surprising twist, Kathy Gilchrist, a 64-year-old woman, came forward claiming that Bishop was her biological father. Her suspicions were confirmed when an FBI special agent contacted her to verify the genetic match, proving that Bishop was, in fact, her father. Despite this revelation, Bishop's whereabouts remain unknown. And the mystery of what happened to him after the brutal murders of his family continues to haunt investigators. And so, the mystery of William Bradford Bishop endures, leaving behind a trail of questions, speculation, and tragedy. How could a man with such an accomplished career and seemingly perfect family vanish without a trace? Could he still be out there, blending into a new life, or has time already closed the final chapter on this infamous case? We may never know. If you found this case as intriguing as we did, be sure to like the video and subscribe to Night Coffee Crime for more deep dives into true crime mysteries. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you think happened to Bradford Bishop? Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. Thanks for watching.